In my past life, my sister thought that my husband and I were very wealthy, so she could secretly switch her son with my son. But 25 years later, my son was raised by her to be a street thug, while her son, raised under my care, rose smoothly through life. Young as he was, he had already become a CEO. He was dutiful, bought me a villa, and even sent me traveling around the world. My sister barged into his company, waving a DNA test report, kicking up a scene, only to be thrown out by security. Mr. Kieran said that even if you are his biological mother, you never gave him a single day of care, they told her. So he refuses to acknowledge you. Breaking down completely, she drove her car into me and ended my life. When I opened my eyes again, we had returned to the very day she switched our babies. This time, my sister clutched her own child tightly, a wild, triumphant grin on her face. From now on, you can be the mother of a street thug, she sneered. The villa, and all those riches, they're mine. When she said it, maybe because she was too delighted, my sister's voice came out loud and sharp. Everyone in the room froze. My husband stood right beside me, and the moment he heard her, rage shot straight through him. What street thug? Who are you cursing? He snapped. But I only stared at the soft, warm child in my arms, my mind drifting. I had actually been reborn on the very day my sister switched our babies. In my previous life, she coveted the millions my husband and I would one day leave behind. So she secretly swapped our sons. She had calculated every step. My husband and I were both high earners, living far better than she ever did. And she and I had never gotten along. By switching the children, she could make me raise her son for free, while taking out her resentment by abusing mine whenever she pleased. After her son inherited our wealth, she planned to present a DNA report, reunite their family, and enjoy a beautiful life. But reality never played out the way she dreamed. 25 years later, her son truly succeeded, becoming a billionaire CEO. My husband and I moved into a luxury villa and traveled the world with the generous money he gave us. Meanwhile, my son, raised by her, had become a street thug, and their relationship was nearly broken beyond repair. Still, unwilling to give up, my sister eagerly took a paternity test to meet Philip Kieran, hoping for recognition. Instead, she was thrown out by the company's security. Philip refused to acknowledge her and even spoke to her with contempt. In her breakdown, she drove my brother-in-law's large van straight into my car. We both died in the crash. I never imagined that death would bring me back. And watching her now, clutching her own child, smug and gloating, I understood instantly. She had been reborn, too. Even with my husband shouting at her, she showed not a hint of fear. She had always been adored by her parents, and with her husband spoiling her, too, she grew up willful and unchecked. Maybe it was the rebirth, or the presence of her child, that gave her even more confidence. She scoffed. Your genes are the problem. You can only give birth to a thug. And I'm not even allowed to say it? My son is different. He's destined to be wealthy. One day he'll be a big boss. Cindy, we're sisters. Let me give you some advice. While you're still young, hurry up and have another baby. Otherwise, that little thug of yours will wreak havoc in your life. When he beats the two of you crippled, no one will even care. Judy Cassatt's mocking voice scraped at my nerves, and my nails dug into my palm. If she hadn't beaten and scolded Axel every day, if she hadn't forced him to drop out of school and junior high to go work, how would he have ended up wandering the streets, refusing even to return home? The day Judy killed me was also the day I learned the truth about the baby swap. The shock of discovering that the child I'd raised for 25 years wasn't mine left my mind in chaos. I wanted to confront Judy, question the hospital director, and find Philip for answers. But more than anything, I wanted to find Axel, my real son, whom Judy had abused for so many years. I never got the chance. Before I could reach him, I died beneath Judy's van. Her mocking tone now made my husband roll up his sleeves, ready to rush forward and hit her. My parents jumped in to stop him. My brother-in-law, Ronald Atkins, wasn't pleased either. He snorted. Judy was just joking. Why are you reacting like this? Having relatives like you is what's embarrassing. He didn't finish a sentence. My husband's temper flared, and he punched him square in the face. He was lifting his fist for another blow when I grabbed his arm. Let it go, Nate. With this second chance at life, all I wanted was to properly make up for my poor son. As for Judy, I'd deal with her eventually, but there was no rush. That night, we completed the transfer to another hospital. While packing up in the hospital room, I overheard whispers from behind the curtain next door. My sister tried to lower her voice, but her excitement was impossible to hide. I've been reborn. My son Philip will become a big boss in the future. At first the others didn't believe her, but as she described everything vividly, their eyes gradually reddened with greed. After all, who wouldn't be tempted by the idea of living in a luxurious villa and becoming effortlessly wealthy? My parents took turns holding Philip, calling him their sweet, precious grandson. Ronald slapped his thigh in delight, grinning so wide his face could barely contain it. That's my boy. He has a bright future. But when the topic shifted to me, Judy's expression turned smug. Cindy's son will grow up to become a street thug, my father frowned. Then we should keep our distance from them. It'll be trouble if he clings to us. My mother quickly chimed in. When Philip grows older, let's send him to a good school. We can't let him be influenced by Cindy's son. Standing outside the curtain, I heard every word clearly. Did she really believe Philip became a CEO because of his own abilities? In my previous life, I'd already been suspicious. How could two honest, hardworking people like Nate and me give birth to someone as cold and self-centered as Philip? He didn't acknowledge Judy as his birth mother, but if not for the fact that I controlled most of the company's shares, he wouldn't have treated me well either. Forget villas and world tours, but I welcome the distance between us. The farther away, the better. Hearing them still whispering behind the curtain, I tossed the lukewarm bowl of porridge straight inside. I didn't bother to look at their shocked faces as I turned and walked out of the room, and this was only the first gift I planned to give Judy. With experience I'd gained over the years in my previous life, my career took off. Promotions came one after another, and I navigated the company with ease. Outside of work, every spare moment went into being with Axel. In my previous life, under the abuse and oppression of Judy's entire family, Axel had picked up smoking and drinking at a young age. He got into fights at school, constantly clashing with others. Judy never reflected on herself. She cursed him daily, calling him useless trash that could never amount to anything. By the time he hit puberty, he had become withdrawn and volatile, refusing to obey her at all. He stayed out all hours of the day and night, but who could blame him? When a home gives you nothing but coldness, you look for warmth wherever you can find it, even in the company of street punks. I never asked my son to become someone extraordinary. I only ever wanted him to grow up happy and carefree. This life, with Nate and me protecting him, Axel didn't carry the turbulence of his past life. At a glance, he was no different from any other well-loved child. His personality was still a little like his father's, quiet and distant. Maybe because I spent the most time with him, he always seemed cooler around others, but deeply attached to me. He often tugged at me to take him out to play, or clung to me while I helped him with homework. This weekend, as usual, I took him to the mall to buy clothes. While looking into the mirror, he suddenly lifted his head. Mom, I don't know why, but sometimes it feels like this life is too good to be real. Last night, I had a dream. I dreamed you and Dad were gone, and a woman tied me to a chair and hit me. I bit her, and she slapped me. It was just a dream, but it felt real, like something that actually happened. His round eyes widened with confusion. I stroked his hair, my voice soft. It was a dream. Let it go. If you have nightmares again, come find me or your dad. Don't keep it to yourself. He was still a child after all. He nodded, clutching the new clothes, and his smile returned. While he went into the fitting room to change, I glanced across a few racks of clothing and froze when I saw Philip. In the last life, raised by my husband and me, Philip lived like a prince, clothed in the best, treated with affection, and a life filled with comfort. This time, he lived with Judy and her family. Though they weren't nearly as wealthy, judging by his clothes, they hadn't let him suffer either. He held Ronald's hand, and beside him stood not my sister Judy, but a younger, prettier woman. The three of them walked together, laughing, looking every bit like a picture-perfect family. Through the row of clothing, his still boyish voice carried clearly, "Kelly, my dad is handsome and gentle, and he really likes you. Can you be my mom? I promise to be really good." The pretty girl laughed, amused. "And what about your mom?" Philip paused a while before saying, "My mom is ugly and mean. She makes me study every day. She's nothing like you." Ronald stood only a few meters away, playing on his phone. He didn't react at all, as if he didn't hear or, worse, didn't care. Every so often he looked up with a pleased little grin. There was not the slightest hint of discomfort at hearing his son insult his wife. And somewhere at home, my foolish sister was probably making dinner for this ungrateful father and son. Seeing Philip act like this didn't surprise me. In our last life, he had done the exact same thing. Nate ran a boxing gym in the city, where a few young women worked as receptionists. Back then, a few sweet words from those girls were enough to make Philip forget who he was. He not only beat and cursed me at home, but even humiliated me in public, saying I was old and worn out, that he wanted a pretty lady to be his mother. This life, in a different family, Philip was still the same ungrateful creature. And Ronald, clearly, wasn't resisting temptation much either. I withdrew my gaze, took out my phone, and quietly snapped a few intimate photos of Ronald with the young girl. When Axel came out of the fitting room, I was just about to take his hand and leave when a sharp, furious scream rang out, "I'll kill you, you homewrecker." The voice was so shrill that half the shoppers in the mall turned to look. A figure charged out from behind a display rack, her face twisted with rage. It was Judy. Without hesitation, she lunged at the young woman beside Ronald. "You shameless little slut. Seducing my husband right in front of my son." The woman screamed as Judy grabbed a fistful of her hair. Ronald finally looked up from his phone. "Judy, what the hell are you doing?" The mall instantly descended into chaos. Philip stood frozen in place. Judy had obviously followed them here. Perhaps she had grown suspicious after Ronald's recent late nights. Or perhaps, after being reborn, she had become even more possessive of the future billionaire son and the perfect family she believed she deserved. Either way, she had caught them red-handed. The young woman burst into tears. "We're not doing anything." "Not doing anything?" Judy shrieked. She pointed at Philip. "Then why is my son calling you Mom?" The surrounding crowd immediately exploded into whispers. "What? The kid called her Mom? That's crazy. What kind of father brings another woman shopping with his child?" Ronald's face darkened. "Stop embarrassing yourself." But Judy had already lost control. In her previous life, everything had gone wrong. Philip had rejected her. The villa had slipped through her fingers. The luxurious retirement she dreamed of had never happened. Now she was desperately clinging to the future she thought belonged to her. She slapped the young woman across the face. The crisp smack echoed through the store. The girl burst into sobs. Philip immediately stepped in front of her. "Don't hit Kelly." The entire mall fell silent. Judy stared at him. For a moment, she seemed unable to believe what she'd heard. "Philip." Her voice trembled. "I'm your mother." Philip frowned. "Kelly never yells at me. Kelly is nice. You only make me study." The words struck harder than any slap. Judy staggered backward. Her face turned pale. For years she had convinced herself that Philip's success came from some innate greatness, that no matter who raised him, he would become a billionaire, that she only needed to wait for the riches to arrive. But now she was beginning to see a terrifying truth. The child she worshipped wasn't some perfect future CEO. He was selfish, spoiled, and already learning how to despise the people who cared for him, just like before. I quietly took Axel's hand. "Come on." He looked at the scene curiously. "Aren't we staying?" I smiled. "No. Some shows aren't worth watching." We left the store. Behind us, Judy's hysterical screaming continued. By evening, the video was all over social media. A wife attacking her husband's mistress in a shopping mall. A little boy publicly calling another woman mom. Hundreds of thousands of views. Millions of mocking comments. That night, I anonymously sent the photos I'd taken to Judy. Every angle, every smile, every intimate moment. A few seconds later, my phone rang. "Judy." I answered. The moment the call connected, she exploded. "Cindy, you knew. You saw them." I calmly peeled an apple. "Yes." "Why didn't you tell me?" I laughed. "You didn't tell me when you switched our children." Silence. Complete silence. For the first time since our rebirth, Judy sounded frightened. "You?" My voice turned cold. "Enjoy your future billionaire son." Then I hung up. Over the next few years, the gap between the two boys grew larger and larger. Axel flourished. He wasn't a genius, but he was kind, responsible, and hardworking. When he was 10, he would help elderly neighbors carry groceries. At 12, he won a citywide science competition. At 15, he started a small online business with his classmates. Every success made me prouder than the last. Meanwhile, Judy's family slowly unraveled. Ronald openly cheated. Their fights became neighborhood gossip. Philip grew increasingly arrogant. He skipped classes, bullied weaker students, spent money recklessly. Whenever teachers complained, Judy immediately blamed everyone else. "My son is special. My son will be a billionaire. My son doesn't need school." Those words became her favorite excuse. Years later, when the college entrance examination arrived, Axel earned admission to one of the nation's top universities. The entire family celebrated. That same year, Philip failed. Not by a little, by a lot. Judy nearly went insane. She stormed into the school demanding a regrade. Then she accused the teachers of sabotage. Then she accused classmates of distracting her son. Anything except admitting the truth. Philip simply didn't care. By then, he spent most of his time partying and showing off online. The future CEO she dreamed about existed only in her imagination. When Axel graduated university and launched a successful technology company, Judy finally broke. She secretly obtained another DNA test. Again it proved the same thing. Axel was her biological son. Philip was mine. She stared at the report all night. Then she came to my house. The moment she saw the family photos covering the walls, she burst into tears. Photos of Axel smiling. Photos of birthdays, graduations, vacations, a lifetime of love. The life she had stolen from her own child, and then destroyed with her own hands in the previous life. "Cindy." She fell to her knees. "I was wrong. I was so wrong." I looked down at her calmly. 25 years ago, I might have hated her. 20 years ago, I might have wanted revenge. But now, I felt nothing, because the greatest punishment had already happened. She had spent her entire life chasing wealth. She traded away her own son for money. And in the end, she watched the child she abandoned become everything she wanted, while the child she spoiled became exactly what she deserved. I gently closed the door, leaving Judy crying outside. For the rest of her life, she would have to live with a truth far crueler than poverty. She hadn't lost her future because of fate. She lost it because of herself. Judy thought her suffering ended when I closed the door. It hadn't even begun. A month later, Ronald filed for divorce. The reason? Infidelity, financial misconduct, and irreconcilable differences. Judy was stunned. For years she had tolerated his affairs because she believed their future billionaire son would eventually make them rich. Now that dream was crumbling. She expected Ronald to at least stay for Philip's sake. Instead, he laughed in her face. Philip, the kid's almost grown. You think I'm wasting the rest of my life with you? The divorce proceedings exposed everything. Secret debts, hidden credit cards, money Ronald had spent on girlfriends over the years. Even worse, much of the family savings had quietly disappeared. Judy discovered that while she was obsessing over Philip becoming a future CEO, Ronald had been treating their bank account like his personal entertainment fund. By the end of the divorce, she received almost nothing. The house had to be sold. The car was repossessed. The woman who once dreamed of living in a villa ended up renting a tiny apartment with peeling paint and leaking pipes. But the worst blow came from Philip, the son she had sacrificed everything for. The son she believed was destined to make her rich. One evening, she called him. Philip, when you get your business started, you'll take care of Mom, right? There was a long silence. Then Philip laughed. Not kindly, mockingly. Exactly the way he had laughed at her in the previous life. Take care of you? What have you done for me besides nag me? Judy froze. The words felt familiar. Because they were. Those were almost the exact words he had used when he rejected her in their previous life. Philip, you forced me to study. You controlled everything. You ruined my childhood. You owe me, if anything. The call disconnected. Judy stared at the phone for hours. For the first time, she understood. The problem had never been which mother raised Philip. The problem was Philip himself. The selfishness. The entitlement. The coldness. It had always been there. She just refused to see it. Meanwhile, Axel's company expanded rapidly. News interviews. Magazine covers. Business awards. Every success became another knife twisting into Judy's heart. Especially because Axel never forgot us. Whenever reporters asked about his success, he always smiled and said, "My parents believed in me when nobody else did. They gave me everything." Judy would watch those interviews alone in her apartment, then cry herself to sleep. Years later, Ronald returned. Not because he loved her. Because he was broke. His younger girlfriends had left. His health was failing. His money was gone. He wanted Judy to support him. The two spent their days screaming at each other, blaming each other, fighting over every dollar. The neighbors learned to recognize the sound of furniture hitting walls. One rainy night, Judy finally snapped. She looked around the cramped apartment. The stained ceiling, the unpaid bills, the medicine bottles, the husband she hated, the son who ignored her. Then she saw a business magazine on the table. The cover showed Axel. Handsome, successful, confident. The headline praised him as one of the country's youngest self-made billionaires. Below the photo was a picture of me and Nate standing beside him. A happy family. The family she had destroyed in her previous life. The family she could have had. Judy collapsed onto the floor. For hours, she cried until her voice gave out. Not because she was poor. Not because Ronald betrayed her. Not because Philip abandoned her. But because she finally understood something she had spent 2 lifetimes refusing to accept. Wealth wasn't what made Axel successful. Love did. Patience did. Guidance did. A good family did. And she had thrown all of that away. In both lives. A few years later, news reached us quietly. Ronald died first. Liver failure. Almost nobody attended the funeral. Philip didn't even show up. Judy sat alone beside the grave. 3 months later, Philip called her for the first time in years. Not to apologize. Not to visit. Not to ask about her health. He wanted money. When she told him she had none, he cursed her and hung up. That was the last conversation they ever had. Judy died 2 winters later in a nursing facility. No husband. No son. No family. The staff packed her belongings into a single cardboard box. Inside was a faded photograph. One she had secretly kept for decades. A picture of baby Axel. Her real son. The child she traded away for wealth. The child who had once smiled at her before she ruined everything. The nurse who found it said there were tear stains all over the photo. As if someone had held it every night, regretting, remembering, and wishing she could go back. But unlike before, there would be no third life. No second. No reverse. Only the consequences of the choices she made.